Hi everyone, I am Miss Val from the North Brunswick Public Library and welcome to Alphabet Soup. It is a very special story time where we focus on a letter of the alphabet. And today's letter, do you recognize this? Y. Y. It sounds like Y. So the uppercase I, the capital I, has two tilted lines at the top. One line going up and down through the middle. The lowercase I, the little one, Y, the lowercase y has a long line going diagonally met by a short line going diagonally. Y. And we are going to start with a book called You Matter. All right. The small stuff too small to see. Those who swim with the tide and those who don't. The first to go and the last. You matter. When everyone thinks you're a pest. When something is just out of reach. The dinosaur can't scratch the itch. When everyone is too busy to help, you matter. If you fall down, if you have to start all over again, even if you are really gassy, you matter. Sometimes home is far away. Sometimes someone you love says goodbye. Sometimes you feel lost and alone, but you matter. Old and young. Young starts with Y, doesn't it? Young. There we go. The first to go and the last. The small stuff too small to see. You matter. And that is our first book. That was a really short one, huh? But I like it a lot. I think it's a really sweet little story about Earth and everyone in it and how everything is big, but it's also kind of small depending on where you are. If you're here on the ground, everything looks huge. But if you're out in outer space, everything looks small, right? So, what else do we have that starts with the letter Y? We have yogurt. We have animals like the yak. We have yarn. This blanket behind me is made out of yarn. And we have yam. A yam is a sweet potato. So, our second book is about one of those four words that I just said. It is called Extra Yarn. So we are going to learn about this little story about some yarn. Are you guys ready? This one's longer than the last one. And we're going to keep an eye out for all of the words that start with the letter Y. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars, too. But there was still extra yarn. Who's Mars? Mars is the dog. That's a good dog name. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. It's Nate and his dog in a sweater, too. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet!" shouted Mr. Norman. Quiet, everyone! Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you. Then I'll knit one for everyone, Annabelle said, so they won't have to turn around. Impossible, said Mr. Norman. You can't. What do you think? I think she can. But it turned out she could. And she did. Even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone, except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. No sweater for me, said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. Where's it all coming from? So she made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats, and for other animals too. Soon, people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. So what do we have here? I see a mouse, a rabbit, cats, a bear, and then the mailbox, the birdhouse, the actual house, all of the houses. Things began to change in that little town. Look at it all. Wow. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke, who was very fond of clothes, sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. Little girl, said the archduke, I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1 million. No, thank you, said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. No, thanks. $10 million, shouted the archduke. Take it or leave it. Leave it, said Annabelle. I won't sell the yarn. And she didn't. So that night, the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box and took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. There's the boat. They're getting away. Back to his castle, the archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box, and he lifted its lid, and he looked inside. What's going to be inside? It's empty. His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. The archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again. But the box ended up on some ice, and it's floating out to sea. And look who found it. It turned out she was. And now there's yarn all over the trees. I had a lot of fun with that one. That was a great little story. The letter Y is kind of hard to find in most words. It happens at the end of words more than at the beginning, right? Like in extra yarn. The archduke said, I never want Annabelle to be happy. Happy ends with the letter Y. But we did our best looking for Y words with Y at the beginning. And now, let's say goodbye for today, and we can sing the alphabet song together, okay? And hopefully, I will see you guys next time for a different letter of the alphabet, all right? Okay, are you ready? Let's go. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? I hope to see you guys next time. Goodbye.